Hi, this is Sean Madrid with 5 on 20. I'm here to basically we're going to have a discussion about Proposition 205. Election day is right around the corner, and although many of you have already cast your ballots, there's still a lot of indecisiveness, especially regarding this one. I had no idea how many positions there were on it, and we're going to discuss a couple of those today. I will say we are basically it's going to be a debate format, so let me introduce our debaters today. This is David Yrigoyen, and he actually opposes 205, but not for the reasons you may think. And this is Andrew Meyer, and he is a spokesperson for the campaign to regulate marijuana like alcohol, which is the Yes on 205 campaign. So the first question I'm going to ask, I am going to ask it to Andrew, and that is, so basically people are claiming, I've heard a lot of claims in fact, that it is a fake legalization of marijuana, and let's just jump right in.
Sure.
What do you think of that?
Well, honestly, on its face, to me, that's ridiculous. I mean, what we're talking about is allowing every Arizonan over the age of 21 to purchase and possess up to an ounce of marijuana with absolutely zero criminal penalty. So, I mean, that covers the absolute vast majority of activity that most people are want to carry out with cannabis. It also removes a whole slew of criminal penalties above and beyond that. Up into 2.5 ounces, it's a petty offense for possession. Up until 5 ounces, it's not a felony for possession up until you get over 5 ounces worth of possession. The people who are going to be carrying around more than 5 ounces are not users. Usually they're distributors. And the truth is, the people that are putting forward these ideas about this not being a real legalization measure, the complaint is not about protecting people from arrest. And let me be clear, 40 people per day in Arizona are arrested for marijuana possession. This is something that is needed now. We need to be protecting people from arrest. This is something that will end arrests for marijuana possession. What it will not end is control of marijuana trafficking. And a lot of the people that are saying this is fake legalization are folks who would see their own personal financial situation impacted by this because they are engaged in either the gray or black market trade of cannabis. I have a lot of sympathy for these people. A lot of them are very good-hearted folks who feel like they're providing a community service to people and they're doing it in a way that is socially conscious. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about is folks being concerned about their own bottom line. And I think it's a shame that folks concerned about their own bottom line would continue a regime of prohibition by voting no on this measure, which is something that's going to protect the vast majority of Arizonans from arrest.
Great, thank you. So, David, do you want to respond to that?
Oh, no, I feel like an ounce definitely it covers, but people in rural areas, they always get more than that, especially if the price comes down and they're able to accommodate more. Then they're gonna get it and want to store it so they don't have to keep coming into town. A lot of people that are sick, it's hard for them to get around. And then the 5 grams of concentrate, that's really not a lot. I know people that use this, and if they don't have a certain amount, their body will spasm. They will have seizures. There's a lot of different things that can happen, especially with the concentrates, because they depend on it, especially when it comes to seizure patients. So, 5 grams really isn't a lot. Your kid that has a syringe of RSO that has 30 milliliters in there, that's 30 grams. That, or 10 milliliters, that's 10 grams. And, or a patient that's using RSO, since kids would still have to be on the medical program, but still. And another thing is the whole cultivating. How do you go from 6 plants is okay to 7 plants? There's still some serious charges for that. And then the city, HOAs, landlords can tell you you can't cultivate. That's why people are saying it's a false impression of legalization. It's not because of a whole ounce and anyone trying to distribute. It's because there's still charges for it. There's still felony charges. There's still court charges. They're still having to deal with harassment with law enforcement. It should be decriminalized completely. There should be more consumer protecting rights.
Mm-hmm. Well, then my follow-up question for you is, does it look better? Does the world in which 205 is passed seem better to you than our current situation, which in my opinion is complete prohibition?
I hear a lot of people say it's a step forward. Well, it's a step forward in terms of recreational and going to consume it, but you're still going to have minors that are going to be in possession. What's going to happen with that? You're going to have to worry about child protective rights. You're going to have to worry about DUI laws. It's already with the law, the workplace, they can fire you for it. It's already a right to work state, and now we have to throw in if people are getting profiled for cannabis use now, because now it's recreational. Like, it should just be completely decriminalized, and that's where my stance is on it.
So let's be clear about the protections that this law offers, because it goes far beyond what many other legalization initiatives have done. It provides protections for custody cases. So a court cannot take your children away from you just because you use cannabis. And this is something that happens to medical marijuana patients right now. You cannot be discriminated against for housing based on your cannabis use. You can't be, unless your employer has a specific workplace policy that they adopt, because either they have federal contracting or the employees that work there engage in the use of heavy machinery where they have a workplace policy against intoxicating substances. You can't be fired from your job because you use cannabis. I mean, it extends a whole range of protections to people that they don't enjoy today. And talking about some medical patients need higher quantities, the medical program continues to operate alongside of this program that has substantially higher limits for people to be able to engage in. And this is something, if the 5 grams of concentrate limit, you can buy 5 grams of concentrate every single day. So you use your 5 grams of concentrate, go back in the next day, buy another 5 grams of concentrate.
You can't be in possession of that, though.
Well, you can be in possession of of up to 5 grams.
In Colorado, it's an ounce or an ounce. So, I hear people tell me Prop 205, and this is from MPP, that Prop 205 is similar to Colorado's initiative. It's nowhere near it. And then you start dialing into people, they're cultivating now. So say you have 6 plants, and this is medicine. You want to be able to make your own topicals or your own edibles, anything from the leaves, your own juice. That's against the law, because now you're using flammable solvents. Oil's considered a flammable solvent. Butter's considered a flammable solvent. Glycerin, alcohol is considered a flammable solvent. So you're dependent on going into the dispensaries for this. Then and cities can put in ordinances that if they consider it a nuisance, you can't cultivate. It's in the language. Mm-hmm. It's right there. Well, anything could be a nuisance. Anything.
Well, I mean, and this is going back to, if the only people that were voting on this were folks that were pro-cannabis advocates, we would have drafted a completely different piece of legislation. I'm not saying that this proposal that we're putting forward is perfect. However, we have to go to a broader electorate to get this approved. Not only do we have to go to a broader electorate in places like Pima County, where this is likely to pass overwhelmingly because support for marijuana legalization is high, but we have to go to places like Maricopa County. We have to go to places like Yavapai County, where having these types of controls, folks want to see a tightly regulated system. They want to have some semblance of local control. And I have a completely separate debate, where he says that the regulations are, David will say the regulations are going too far, where on the other side of it, I'll debate a Chamber of Commerce representative and they say that the regulations don't go nearly far enough and provide enough local control.
Because they're unaware of the plan itself.
These are
the people drafting up these initiatives. You guys completely left out the consumer protection rights that AZFMR wanted to be put into Prop 203 or 205, and it's not even in there.
Like what specifically?
Especially with the cooking, the butter and oils, that's ridiculous. People should be able to make their own edibles at home. You can cook it non-psychoactively, but that's a Class 6 felony.
I mean, what we were talking about with the non-flammable substances, we've had, and David will be aware of this, is one of the main issues around marijuana, as far as people possessing it, has nothing to do with the possession of it, has nothing to do with the use of it. But there have been a rash of instances where people were trying to make their own concentrate in their garage and having explosions happen. I mean, and this is something that has been a concern for homeowners associations, having concerns for law enforcement. There's a lot of unregulated use of things like making butane hash oil. And it has caused problems on that side of it. I mean, and that's
butane, hexane, CO2. That's completely different than butter and oil. That stuff. That a lot of it's natural. Especially if you do. There's vegan butters that are made up of olive oil, coconut oil, different oils. That's a flammable solvent right there.
Well, let me just ask you this. Why do you think that there's a lot of confusion around 205? Like, what is causing that confusion?
I think that a lot of it is the support. To be honest, people say follow the money, and if you follow the money, who are the ones really pushing for this? And a lot of it is current dispensary owners, and that's because it's written in the language that existing medical dispensaries get first option at the recreational license. Oh, and then there's going to be a 30-day gap before there's any more license issued to the general public. However, cities can put in ordinances that prevent new dispensaries from opening up within, I think it's like 5 years or until 2020. So that kind of gives the current dispensary owners who transition to the recreational market a big jump start to corner the market. And there's a lot of people that paved the way for this that should have opportunity to be in this. If you have a felony, you can't be a dispensary agent, you can't be on the board of a dispensary. A lot of the people that risked their lives to pave the way for this picked up felony charges for little things. I had to go to court for cash. It was only a certain amount of cash, and I had to go claim it and prove my innocence just so I can show them, hey, I shouldn't be for this, because they profile people. It's all profiling. And then you're going to tell me that things are going to change when they're creating a separate police force just for this, and then you say the medical program won't change when the medical program gets put into this regulatory group that's owned by these people that are current dispensary owners and the recreational dispensary owners. Are they going to want to see progression in the medical program? Are they going to want to see new qualifying conditions? What
would you say is the confusion behind the proposition, like why some people don't fully understand it?
Well, number one, it's a complicated proposal.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a state where we have the Voter Protection Act. So I mean, the ability to go back and make changes to beyond that, we have a hostile state legislature and a hostile governor. I mean, we have to put strong definitions about what the program is going to look like to make sure that there's a smooth implementation process. So when you have 20 pages of initiative language, part of that is there's an opportunity for misperceptions to arise. I've been involved in drafting a lot of legislation, not just around cannabis, and when you're trying to put together something that's going to have broad electoral appeal, if you can walk away from the table feeling good about 80% of what's in that proposal, that's a good day. Because this is something that needs to have broad appeal, and again, talking about the regulations around localities being able to restrict zoning, the fact that they can't restrict zoning 100% is a huge negative in a lot of communities. Like in places like Mesa and Gilbert, we're picking up a lot of no votes because people don't like that there's not more local control. So it's like, I find ourselves in the middle, and when you're getting attacked by both sides, you can feel like you probably found a pretty good common middle ground. And we need to get the 50+1 on election day. And then that means getting people who are not cannabis consumers to vote yes on this. Even at the highest estimates, 12 to 15% of the Arizona adult population use cannabis in any given year. So, we need 4 times as many people to vote yes on this on election day. Mm-hmm. So, these concerns, while I'm very sympathetic to them, I mean, I understand them from somebody who's close to the industry. However, we have to look at this through the lens of somebody who is a Scottsdale soccer mom, and that's who our swing voter is.
Well, what would you say to those who claim that Prop 205 sets up monopolies within marijuana production and distribution businesses?
Well, and I want to address that one particularly, because what we're talking about, I mean, this is going to impact on the medical program in the sense that card fees, unfortunately, and we have lobbied the Department of Health Services aggressively to try to get card fees lowered. And this is another one of those reasons why having a separate marijuana control board and not running it through Department of Health Service is such a good idea, because it gives us a closer relationship with policymaking to be able to make changes like that. Like, we have a $15 million surplus in the medical marijuana fund right now, and the state is still charging patients $150 to be able to get their card. It's completely ridiculous. So in that environment where someone has to pay $150 to get their card, unless they are a very heavy consumer within the medical program, the tax advantage that you get from being in the medical program doesn't offset that card fee. So you're going to see a migration from people out of the medical program and into the recreational market. So there needed to be protections in place for people who had already put out in millions of dollars in many cases to build up a cultivation facility, create a vertically integrated operation, and start providing medication to patients in a way that isn't cost prohibitive. If we would have opened up this market and said there's going to be 2,000 recreational licenses on day one, all of that investment that those people made would basically be lost, because they would have a medical license that wouldn't be worth as much anymore because the patient counts would go down. And to me, there's a moral hazard associated with that. Like, these are people in an incredibly adverse legal environment. Back when the state was suing itself in federal court to try to block implementation of this program, they took a risk. They put their own money into it to try to get this program up and running. You have to provide protections for those individuals. And then, beyond just the moral responsibility of that, there's the political side of it. If you would not have provided any sort of protection, if you want to see this thing passed, if you have a group of 90 dispensary owners who see a new initiative that comes forward as a mortal threat to their business, do you think they're going to support or oppose that initiative? They're going to oppose it with all of the financial clout that they were able to bring to the table in support of this, and they are the ones who are putting the checks on the line to try to, provide this legal protections for people.
They have incentive.
Well, of course they do. And the thing is, we had to create that incentive. We would not be talking about an initiative that would be close to passing right now. I mean, if we would have drafted a community-based initiative, and by the way, there was an initiative that was put forward by folks that wanted to see something that looked a lot more like David wanted to have on the ballot. They couldn't qualify it for the ballot. They couldn't even pass the first hurdle of qualifying the thing for the ballot.
You guys pulled away. You stopped working with them.
Well, no, but the thing is, like, because we got to a point, and
because you guys didn't even want the 6-12 rule. You guys didn't want people to grow 6 plants, 12 per household. Dispensary owners don't want that because they want people to go purchase it over there.
I'll tell you right now, 0 dispensary owners had any concern about their business being impacted by people growing at home. It's the same way that Hensley, who distributes Budweiser products in the state.
25-mile air rule then for the medical program if there's no threat. Air rule, air. These big mountains across this state separate towns by 60, 80-mile drives, but a mountain that's only 10 miles away, they can't cultivate because of the as the crow flies. That's
we
what.
That regulation. I mean, like the as the crow flies regulation has been changed. Number one, so the 25 miles is back in place. The 25-mile rule was because cities did not want to have wide-scale. Again, this is something that we need to be working with our local authorities.
That's not working towards legalization. People should have access to this plant. It's a medicine. This is nature's medicine here. Like,
I agree with you.
No,
I agree with you. I mean, and that's the thing is David and I, at the end of the day, agree on almost everything. But
the corruption with the money behind it. Money shouldn't pave the way. To have lobbyists call me telling me I'm giving misinformation, and then I look them up and their job title specifically says dealing with donations with $100,000 or more, like you're only dealing with people's money. The money's talking through you, not you, the person. I want to talk to people that actually know people that have risked their lives for this, have lost their lives for this, that use the plant, respect the plant, that have seen patients change their lives. Like, this saves lives. I see it every day at my center, at my clinic.
Yeah.
People come in here. We see them go from list of medication to no medication. MS, lesions all over their brain to 0, like 200 plus to 0, depression completely gone. This is all education we teach. I teach them how to cook at their own at home so they can have these tools so they don't have to be dependent on an overpriced dispensary with quality you don't know what it is. And then you have, come on, I know a lot of what goes on. I know a lot of the cultivation centers.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I'm not trying to kill anyone's buzz here, but I want to ask you, a lot of people are afraid that it might create a new police force for marijuana.
Of course.
And do you want to speak to that for?
I'm afraid of that too, because who knows what's going to happen. Now a smell can be probable cause, whereas with the medical card, it's not probable cause, but it could be probable cause now. Now, if they want to see how many plants you're growing, they can enter your house. Now you lose the right to know the search and seizure, and it's just, there's a lot that can be affected by it with this policing unit. We don't know, like, why do we have to create a whole new police force for it? We should be seeing less laws generated for this, not more laws. I put up the current existing laws and then the 205 laws that MPP sent me. And, a lot of them went from red to green, but there's still a lot of red. Like, how can we get that red away? We had that power to do that. You guys had the power to do more consumer protecting rights. You guys were working with Arizona for mindful regulation, and it pulled away because there wasn't that communication. There wasn't that agreement. You know, you guys, there's different interests, you know, and it's
So-
all supporting different interests, and I'm for the people.
Here's what I'll say, is we have to make incremental change. I mean, I don't think anyone would say that Prop 203 was the end-all be-all of you know, moving the marijuana issue forward and providing protections for arrest. I mean, obviously it was a first step.
Still more
But-
protection than 205.
Well, no, and that's the thing, is that there were complaints from the same community back when we were running Prop 203. They said that they weren't going to support Prop 203 because it didn't go far enough. No one can say that we're not in a better place today because Prop 203 passed. It's an overwhelmingly popular law, both among supporters of cannabis rights and among users and among the general public. So Prop 205, I mean, this is an incredibly close election. Let me be clear about that. So for everybody who's considering not voting, or you know, or feeling apathy about this, if you want to stop 40 arrests a day, you really need to get out there and vote. And this is about incremental change. Is this going to be the be-all, end-all to everybody and meet everybody's requirements on what a perfect law looks like? No. Is it better than the status quo right now? Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. It stops arrests for 99.99% of marijuana-related activity. The protections that are not in there are protections for people who are engaging in trafficking. And now, while I don't think that there should...
Trafficking, though, if you live in a rural area and these people literally can't move, we do rural clinics, these people can't go, and you have someone there that says, hey, I'll go into town and I'll go get everything for everyone and, you know, drive it back. Right now we call that a caregiver, but if they don't have to have a caregiver because now everyone doesn't want their cards because they're under the impression I can have an ounce, so they send their nephew or son or whoever to go get it, and now they're in possession of over 1 ounce. You know, it's still, it's ridiculous.
Well, you also have to understand that it changes the culture. Is that once you have these laws in place and the simple possession of marijuana is no longer illegal, it stops law enforcement from looking for these types of activities. So that's the grand irony of this, is that the people who are opposing this because they think that it doesn't go far enough, is that they would enjoy so much greater protection under this law because there's an assumption that marijuana possession is legal.
You know,
so even if you're working around the outskirts of the law, the odds of you getting arrested for that type of activity under this new regime are infinitely lower than they are today.
You know what the grand irony is, Andrew? That cannabis was recognized as medicine until 1942.
It was the most prescribed medication in the United States.
You know what the grand irony
century.
is? The grand irony is the U.S. government owns patent U.S. Patent 6630507, which proves that cannabinoids in cannabis act as neuroprotectants and antioxidants.
Yep.
It's irony that in July, the DEA still kept cannabis as a Schedule I narcotic. It's irony that right after that, the DEA said that cannabis, Marinol, is now coming out with synthetic drops. You know, so how are they saying cannabis has no benefits as a medical substance, but yet Marinol, which has THC, is a medication regulated by the FDA? That's the irony. It shouldn't even be illegal.
I agree with you. I mean, I don't think that anybody should be arrested for marijuana no matter how much they're cultivating and no matter how much they possess. I think the end game on this is that there's no difference between having 5 pounds of marijuana and having 5 pounds of coffee. Like, that should be the reality.
You know how much it takes to make one syringe of Rick Simpson oil to help a kid with seizures or a patient with seizures? It takes about a pound. That's what it takes.
And that's why the medical program still exists. I mean,
how do we know they're going to still have the same restrictions? How do they know if people are going to want to carry the same products? If it starts pulling away, if people aren't getting their cards, if they don't have to keep up with it, it's going to go towards the recreational. They're trying to push everything recreational, medical, recreational. It's all cannabis. It's all the same damn plant. Like, we need to get rid of the recreational and the medical and start teaching people this plant is safe. Not one reported death in over 10,000 years. Not one overdose on it. You know, you can take it non-psychoactively. The only time you get high is if you smoke it and add heat or eat it with heat it up. That's the only time you get high from this. If you eat it raw, you won't get high at all.
And here's the thing.
And it's medicine.
I agree with 100% of what David's saying here today, but the hard reality is, if a proposal was put forward that is the language that David would want to see, we would lose. Because this very
Because you're pushing the misinformation. It's not the right education. If we're actually putting education, you have the opportunity now to put commercials out for this, but we don't have the right education? That's why.
If we have a relatively conservative initiative that is going to be very, very, very close. and we needed to draft it that way because it needs to appeal to a broad spectrum of the community. It's very easy for us who are involved in the industry and been involved for a long time to get into an echo chamber because the only people that we see are people who are pro-cannabis. You have to step outside of that. And I see that because I see our opposition. You know, I see people who don't understand it at all, and need to be brought along. This is incremental change. And I'm telling you what, we will wake up in a much more just society when we pass this thing on November 8th.
But you know what gets me, Andrew? Just one last thing. If you guys would have worked closer with AZFMR, and I know you say, oh, they wouldn't have approved it. We put it out in test votes and we weren't getting the popularity. The popularity's already out there. The compassion's already out there. I know a very conservative person, severe conservative person. He voted no on 203. He told me, David, this is the first time I ever voted yes on cannabis regulation. He's in his 70s, and he said this is the first time ever.
Yep.
And I did it because I felt like a hypocrite all these years. And I tell him, it's the wrong initiative. Like, it's the wrong initiative. You already had that compassion vote. We already have over 31% of the U.S. population that has never smoked cannabis is for it because they see it help other people. All we have to do is get the right initiatives in there and stop supporting the money, the corruption. You know, we don't know what's going to happen. We need more regulation. We need more control and more quality control. There's a lot that has to be done. To tell patients, focus on CBD because CBD is going to help with your anxiety. Don't use THC. But then I hear them. I walk into a dispensary and I hear them, do you have CBD? No, but here's something similar. And I'm watching the whole thing with my own eyes and they give them a THC tincture. I'm like, this person doesn't need THC. They're using it for depression. This can cause anxiety. You know, that's miseducation, misinformation. And these are the people that are currently running the program. Like, we have to have change.
What is your big fear if it gets passed? Like, what concerns you most about that reality?
My biggest fear is that it's going to be harder to start changing some things that aren't, termed right now. The terminology is not right. So, yeah, it could be a step forward, but if there's something in there that we need to now change, it's hard, man. It took years to get PTSD on the ballot, and then they fire Sue Cicely the minute she approves it or puts their research out there and gets it on the ballot. Like, there has to be, it's just going to be harder to change everything. That's what fears me. Like, that's my biggest fear right there. If it starts getting out of hand, if it starts pulling away from the true essence of the plant, because now we're limited on what we can get, we're limited on what we can do at home. People are under the impression that they don't need their cards anymore, when in reality, Andrew even said it, you can have more quantity, you can cook your own stuff, you can have access to the oils and stuff that's helping. And then, we haven't really talked about what happens to the people under 21 if they get caught with the plant. I started using the plant when I was 13. I've been a constant user since I was 13, so.
It becomes a petty offense instead of a felony. Talk about not screwing kids' lives up. This is a huge, huge step forward. And here, can I talk about what scares me if we don't pass this thing?
Yeah, tell us.
Is that, number one, we're not going to have another opportunity like this for 4 years. Because just politically, it needs to be presidential election year for you to run this type of ballot initiative and have it succeed. So we're 4 years past for where we are right now, having 40 arrests a day for simple marijuana possession. But worse than that is that it gives our opponents momentum. And the thing is, we have people like Bill Montgomery, the county attorney up there in Maricopa County, and all of our enemies at the legislature. If this gets voted down at the ballot box, they are going to mistakenly, but they'll see it as a mandate to start attacking the medical program in the legislature. Because, they want the medical program gone. And they're going to see like the momentum is with them. We're going to be 4 years out before we're able to put forward a similar proposal. I feel like the medical program is going to become under siege.
I actually see it as the opposite, and I see that as kind of a scare tactic you're using. Like, I think people know the hypocrisy behind this plan. I think in 4 years, more people are going to get more education. There's a reason why people are moving across the country to states that have medical programs or recreational programs. There's a reason why people are leaving law enforcement jobs and military jobs where they get restationed in different parts of the country where their loved ones can't have access to their medication now, so they have to leave the military or beg to get reassigned to a state that has recreational or medical so their loved one can go through treatment. We're already seeing that, so the more it just keeps going, the more we see these people like Montgomery and discount tire owner giving this money, opposing it, the more people are getting upset, the more it's riling them up. And if you would have just supported consumer protected rights, we would have had way more momentum. But now you got the industry that realizes the hypocrisy behind it and the corruption pulling away from you guys. And it's happening in California too with Prop 64. And it's the same thing. You know, they're afraid it's going to interfere with 215, the medical program. You got big corporations like Pfizer donating money into this, supporting it. Why do you have big pharmaceuticals supporting cannabis regulation in California? That's my question.
Well, I mean, here they're opposing it. You know, like one of our biggest opponents.
Only
is
one company.
Well, and
a small part of Pfizer who has money.
And they manufacture opioids. I mean, that's the thing. Is like the pharmaceutical industry sees this as an existential threat because we're talking about a plant that is natural, can't be patented, and over the long term, we're looking at something that's going to become less and less expensive. I mean,
that's what we should have.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, like the plant should be as free as possible.
I can go to a health food store and buy an ounce of herbs for tea for $1. Mm-hmm. Why is cannabis an ounce $400, $250, $200? And then people need to take this in larger amounts. People can consume it raw. They can take teas, they could take juices that help them out, that are non-psychoactive, that create natural homeostasis in the body, and they need larger amounts. 1 ounce really isn't a lot.
An ounce a day, I think, is quite a bit.
I know people that use way more than that, and these are good people. They just smoke a lot. I have a friend, she doesn't do anything. She just stays home. They're really wealthy. She smokes an ounce a day. She smokes more than that. And she's a really wealthy person. She doesn't have to do anything. They're older. They just live their life.
Number one, that's an unusual circumstance, and number two,
it happens a lot more than you think. It's just those people don't talk about it. I use it so much, I wouldn't even want to tell how much. And I'm able to still come on and debate and know what I'm talking about. And I use it right before I came here, and that's what I tell people. It's all about how you dose it. It's a really safe plant. It's like any other medication out there.
Right on. So I just want to, I think we're going to wrap up, but there is still one big question I think a lot of people have, and a lot of people are talking about this proposition, and that is how basically the 205 is supposed to prevent companies from selling pipes and smoking accessories for tobacco use. And as someone from the camp, I would be curious to know what the issue is there.
That is not the case. I mean, all you have to do is go into the way that the smoke shops are regulated now. They can't sell marijuana paraphernalia today. Those are all tobacco pipes that they're selling right now. Now, what they end up getting used for at the end doesn't matter. So, I mean, this is one of the biggest unfortunate things is that you've got a lot of smoke shop owners who have gotten a completely bad raft of information and talk about scare tactics, people telling them that their businesses are going to get shut down. This would be an incredible boon to those individuals because we're talking about, increasing the number of legal consumers in Arizona by at least tenfold. Those are all customers for their shops. Right. So, I mean, now, do you have marijuana paraphernalia can be regulated under the new board, but they're not selling marijuana paraphernalia today. I mean, this is a complete, it's rhetorical. I mean, it's whatever word that you use.
Yeah, but if people are coming into the dispensary and then you just set up a glass shop right there, then they're not going anywhere else. They're already here. If it's tourism, if it's anything, it's already right
Dispensaries
there.
Dispensaries sell glass now.
Yeah, but it's not recreational. It's not getting that kind of traffic.
You cannot make an argument to me that the business for smoke shop owners would not improve dramatically, and you can just ask the folks across the state line in Colorado. I mean, the business would be.
But is it written in their initiative, the similar language that's written in this one, why it scares current smoke shop owners?
And I understand why they're concerned, and there's absolutely zero reason for them to.
But the language is very similar to Colorado's with when it comes to paraphernalia and who regulates it and who can sell it.
I would have to look up the initiative. I don't want to give you a bad answer on that.
Okay, no, that's fine.
So
I'm just curious.
when I was more or less looking up a bunch of the No on 205 campaign, which neither of you belong to, in my opinion, like you have your reasons against it, but you're not
Yeah, I'm all for
one of
cannabis
these 205 No on 205 guys.
legalization.
They're like running this poster, and I don't know if we can get that up. I don't know if you guys have seen this one, and I just think it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
So I have two more questions for you. Can you tell the difference between these two things? The next one. And then, like, did you do the Pepsi challenge ever?
No, I did not do the Pepsi challenge.
Did you do the Pepsi
I did
challenge?
do the Pepsi challenge growing up, yes.
All right, so
And you can tell the difference.
you can totally tell the difference. Do you have any issue telling the difference between Coke and Pepsi?
Yeah, you
I
put
feel
a
like
cannabis candy in your mouth, you're gonna taste cannabis. I'll tell you that. You're
Right.
gonna know right off the bat.
our
You
kid's
can
gonna
smell
know.
it.
Our kid's gonna know.
Yeah, well, the parents should be the ones putting it away. It
That's
should-
the
you know?
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the kids. Like, the kids can't go in and buy it. The parents are the ones picking it up. If they're the ones leaving alcohol out, it's the same thing, you know?
Right.
You can go to your parents' cupboard, open up the drawer, start sipping on the bottle. Who is that? Is that the kid for not knowing what the hell they're drinking?
Exactly.
No, it's the parent.
No, and that's 4,000 children have died from alcohol overdose in the last 10 years, and 0 children have died from marijuana overdose in the last 10 years.
Kids
So,
use it.
yeah, so I mean, like it's important that parents are responsible. Parents lock up their medications. Parents lock up their psychoactive substances. I mean, that's just responsible parenting. But the good news is that even in the worst case scenario, if children get a hold of this stuff, it's not a fatal issue.
Exactly.
Right.
No, I agree 100%. And we have a lot of kids that come into our center that their parents bring them in to get their cards because it does help them. It helps with the cancer. It helps with the seizures. They're finding out it helps with autism, ADHD, a lot of different things. And it doesn't have to be those candies you show that are so psychoactive and laced, but there are safe, healthy ways to take this. And you know, the dispensary labels it. They put everything on there. You can tell the difference. If a parent is going to leave it out like that, that's their fault, man.
Mhm.
It's not the
Well,
children.
and that's gone incredibly mainstream. I mean, the Phoenix Children's Hospital, the neurology department at Phoenix Children's Hospital sends patients for recommendations all the time.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, like this is something that has become mainstream medical treatment
Exactly.
for a lot of children with very severe illnesses, and it's getting them off of much more dangerous
Yeah.
drugs. That's the thing, is like these are kids that are on drugs with black box warnings, you know, and then they're able to move on to a natural substance that's providing them a lot more palliative relief.
Well, what happens too is when they get them on these narcotics early on, these prescription medications, and they're in that stage where they're developing and it's crucial for their development, it numbs them and makes them like a zombie. So that's why their development skills come so short. They're so paused. You know, they have learning disabilities.
Sure.
We see it happen.
Okay.
But cannabis does help a lot.
So that's just about it for today. I want to thank both of you. This is, again, David Yrigoyen and Andrew Meyer. And this was 5 on 20 News. Thank you.